Hi, this is Steve from Hope Revealed Church in Coatesville, PA, and we're doing kind of a second part video to the original Guerrilla church plant video. For those of you that seen the first video, it was the early stages of we'd left Missouri and come to Pennsylvania, and we're getting ready to launch this church. For those of you that seen the first video, you I'm sure remember that right after we got out here, we lost one of our children to a horrible accident. And so that really changed the dynamic of not only what we were doing, but what we were going to deal with while we were doing it, and the significance of all of that. So in this video today, what I'm trying to do is give a little update on the church, what has happened, what we've learned along the way, and how this has kind of played out. Right now, we're 9 months in. We launched church July 29th of last year, and it was miraculous. We've seen God show up in ways to even make the church happen. Coming back and grief-stricken, and everybody knows that we did this church on no money, no support from other churches or no sister churches, partner churches, mother churches, none of that. We just came out here on our own. We felt God called us to do it, and we felt that if we were doing what God called us to do, God would take care of the rest. And he did, and he's done it in some really big and dramatic ways. But each step took us stepping out and being willing to trust God and believe in his plan and let him sort it out. And so I was working, and we scrounged up enough money that we found a little place that we could rent downtown Coatesville. And we were renting it by the day, 2 days a week, one day for Bible studies and such, and the other Saturday night for services, which was our original intention, to have Saturday night service. A lot of the people that we're trying to reach, a lot of unchurched people, addicts, homeless, mentally ill, a lot of people that the traditional church just doesn't seem to fit real well for them. So Saturday night seemed like a really good night. We launched on July 29th. It was funny, our first service, we had 48 people, and I'd never done a sermon before we launched this church. I mean, the launch of our church was the first sermon I'd ever preached. And I had all of these notes and had prepared and everything, and I got up there to do my sermon, and I ran through the whole sermon in 15 minutes. All the pages of the notes only amounted to 15 minutes of sermon. So, the preaching part has really been a learning curve. I've had to learn a lot of things just to even be able to do that. For a lot of you know that we record the sermons and we put them online because we have some people around the country that watch. And so for me, one of my rules on doing the sermons is don't watch the videos. I do not want to watch the videos. I hate the sound of my voice. I look like a meathead half the time, and it's just better for my ability to be able to get up there and do it to not even watch the videos. So I don't watch the videos. But so that first, we had a lot of people show up, people from different places, and it was a really good launch. It was encouraging, but it wasn't without its the issues were with us, being so soon after Tyler died. A big part of this early time, Charity most of the time was in just like a state of shock and in a fog. And I mean, I would catch her a lot of times just staring off into space or not knowing where she was at or what was going on. And I think one of the things that was helpful about doing church is that it was something she knew Tyler was proud of, that we were doing this. And I think that through the doing of church and the logistics and getting everything set up and stuff, I think she was at her best doing that stuff because it really gave her a purpose, something that, she knew Tyler would be proud of. And it was an area where she throughout the week, that's where she was going to be the most okay. And there was it was bittersweet. We were seeing God do a lot of things, but there was always going to be that element of that, man, we wish Tyler was here. We wish Tyler would have been able to come to the first service. We wish, and so, it's not, I don't want to say it's been easy, and I don't want to say it's been hard. I want to say it's been intense. There's been a lot of emotion involved with it. From the aspect of, for people that don't know anything about church, that don't know, I don't have any theology degree, I've never been to seminary, that we just felt like God called us to do this and we were going to do it. So a big part of that is you have to learn a lot of stuff that maybe people in church already know, but I also think that God used that in the sense that a lot of the advice that we got on how to do church and how church should look and what should happen, we weren't really restricted by that tradition and that idea. Early on, I went to Charity and I went to a retreat on church planting, and I'm not in any way discounting that. They had a lot of good ideas and they had a lot of stuff that was very helpful, but what I noticed was there was a lot of attention paid to pre-churching before you plant the church, a lot of rules on what you should do and how long you should be in the community before you do that, how you should interact with your community, blah, blah, blah. I've also seen a whole lot of ideas on branding your church and having a visual idea of your church, and I don't want to say this in a mean way, but I was kind of offended by that, because to me the whole idea of branding church and making it a corporate thing, or the way the world does business, just kind of offended me, because I kind of came at this from this pure angle of, if God wants us to do this, if we do our part, whatever he puts in front of us, the results are up to him. And the only way for us to do that was that idea. And so we didn't do a lot of the stuff that church normally does when they're planning a church. We didn't go out and raise a bunch of support. Like I said, we paid our first month's church building rent, and we didn't have the second month. We were believing that God's gonna do it. We didn't have a year's worth of, so we didn't go the normal way. But one of the things, and this was a funny thing, is that since Tyler died, and we've been doing this, I have heard more from God in more dramatic ways than I ever have. And coming out of that church planting retreat, I kind of was struck with man, this ain't what I want church to look like, and these ideas and all that stuff, and I don't, and I very clearly, to me, heard God say this, and he said that if you are truly a born-again believer in Jesus Christ, church should be the most natural thing you do. And then he asked me, he said, do you think I had to teach the angels how to worship me? And that idea not only took all the pressure off, because the idea now was not a successful church or the hip church or the new church in town. It was, we are going to do what we do every day in our hearts, which is love God and worship all he's done for us, and to show our gratitude and to talk about Jesus. So that's what we're going to do, just in a building that other people are invited to. So that became the foundation of that. We weren't going to, a lot of the things I heard early on, well, what's your vision? What's your vision? And I'm like, I'm trying not to have a vision. I'm trying not to let my will and my ideas and my preconceived notions and expectations rise up. What we said was, we're trying to not paint the picture, but let God paint the picture and us just carry the paint. So this year we have set out to just try to carry the paint. And so we launched the 29th, and it was good. And the church really has kind of, we've had small crowds, we've had bigger crowds, but the first launch has been our biggest service. But we had one service where there was only 2 people. And you'd think that getting up preaching in front of thousands would be hard. It's not. For me, the idea, I've never done it, so I don't know, but the more people it is, it kind of seems to be easier for me. But that service where we only had 2 people, and it was funny because we had one show up, and I was a little bit, no, not a little bit, I was nervous, and I was talking to Charity, and I was like, man, this is, how am I going to preach to one person? And so we prayed before the sermon. We're like, Lord, send us some more people. And then another person came through the door. So it's like, okay, preach to 2. And we've done that. And there's been weeks where it's been 10 or 12 or 20 or 30 or whatever, you know, but it's fluctuated a lot. A lot of the people that we're trying to reach, what I've learned is, a lot of them have been to church and have had church experiences. And they've been turned off by the traditional church. And so they come looking for something new. That's not always a good thing. Sometimes it's a lot, these are people that church hop, and as soon as they hear something they don't like, they hop on. And so early on we had to realize that we're dealing with a transient group within the church. Now, we've gotten new people, and we've had people that have gotten saved, and we've had people that, you know, really have grabbed a hold of the rawness of our church. Because, trust me, it is not very polished. I'm not a good speaker. I'm not a good sermonizer. But what we do try to do is to be real and true and authentic. That's not always pretty. But we had a lot of people that's what they grab onto, because when you deal with addicts and people like that, the first thing we're going to feel when we go into a normal church is we're going to feel shame and rejection, whether it's there or not. And sometimes it is. But even if it's not, we're going to kind of feel that we're not a part or we're outsiders. And so in our church, a lot of people that from that world feel pretty comfortable there. And that's a good thing. Part of it is their lives are dramatic. So life circumstances dictate a lot of how involved they get, how long they stay, what's happening in their world. But also there's another element of that I noticed about the group that has been to a lot of other churches. And that is that they're searching for a church that will tell them exactly what they want to hear, the way they want to hear it, when they want to hear it. And we're not that church. I promise you, we're not that church. We show love to everybody that comes through that door. We're small enough that we get to interact with everybody. Our goal is that if you come to our church, we need to know where you're at. Are you saved? Where are you at when you're with your walk with God? How are you living? You know, I mean, and it's good that we're small enough that we can do that. I understand not every church can really get, but it seems to me almost of paramount importance that if you come to church, the people at the church should know whether you're saved or not. You know, we need to know what's our number one mission with you, because if you're not saved, we need to get you saved if that's possible. So, but what I noticed is this group of people will stay until you tell them what they don't want to hear. And the sad part about that is the thing you don't want to hear is usually the thing you need to hear the most. And man, I just cannot back off of that. you know, if you come into the church and you ask me my opinion of abortion or gay marriage or anything like that, I am going to tell you the Bible is the standard. That is what we believe. Being as we're a rougher, smaller church, I think people think that we're going to be more open to, hey, just be how you want to be or be what you're going to be, and you know, and we're not. I'm going to show love to every one of them people, no matter how they're living, they're welcome at our church. But I am never going to get off of the Word of God to make the crowd grow or to make people happy or to make people serve or stay or whatever. That just ain't, that isn't going to happen. And for any of you that know me personally, you know that ain't going to fly. So for me, it's been a big learning experience this year. You know, we also are in a demographic that, man, a lot of people come with a hustle, you know, and they got to come through to see whether you're a mark or not, you know, and we knew that before we started because we're hustle people, and we know, you know, so you know, we know that that's was going to be a part of the deal. And so, I mean, before we even launched, or right when we launched, we had a girl in town. It was right after we launched. She'd never come to church. She'd never met us or anything, but she sent us a Facebook message asking if we'd pay her $650 electric bill. And I'm like, yeah, right, you can pay our $650 electric bill, you know, but it's just the idea that there's been some of that's you know, rolled through to see, hey, are we a soft touch? Are we gonna, you know, and so, you know, that I still look at all of those them encounters as an opportunity. I'm not going to give in to their hustle, but I also make sure that I do it in a kind way, because hustle is just another sin, and we're called to love the sinners, and so I'm going to love them even if they're trying to hustle me. I'm just not going to let them hustle me. You know, so, you know, we've had some people come in through that, and you know, we've tried to interact with the community in a way that wasn't trying to get them addicted to coming to our church because of free stuff, or, you know, just rolling through, picking up a sandwich and a pop and rolling on. And because in our town, there's plenty of places to get a free meal. You're not going to starve to death in our town. And I'm not talking about not feeding the hungry. I'm talking about not diminishing what church is in their eye. You know, I don't want them looking at our church as just a place to go get a bowl of soup. I want them to look at our church as a place to come and get living water, and to come and encounter Jesus Christ, and to come and have your life changed. And I think if we become the nursemaid, they never look at us as anything other than the nursemaid. So it's been good. Now we had last Halloween, we set up out front, and our building's right in downtown. So I mean, it's right in the mix of everything. And we did set up, and we put up a grill, and we just grilled a bunch of chili dogs, 350 chili dogs. And we had a bunch of people that were out on Halloween trick-or-treating with their kids, and we were like, hey, come on by and have some chili dogs. So we fed a lot of people. I think we had between 150 and 200 people came by that night just to get a chill. And we had people from the church that we go to on Sundays, and people that come to our church, just down there talking to people, and you know, just hanging out with them that night. So it was good, but we don't want to do that so much that that's what we're known for. We don't want to be a cheeseburger church. We don't want to be you know, hey, if you're hungry, go hit them up. Or if you need your electric bill, go hit them up. You know, we don't want to diminish what we can be in these people's lives. You know, we're in an area that's ravaged by addiction and poverty ideas. I want to say poverty ideas more than poverty, because I'm not even sure poverty really exists in the United States anymore. I mean, you know, even the poor people they all got an iPhone and they all got a place to live, and but there's a poverty, some kind of mentality or whatever. There's a lot of poverty in our town, but it's just not old school poverty. But there's with that addiction and that poverty, there's a lot of spiritual poverty. So, and we got people dying here every day because of addiction, and we really wanted to make sure that if you're a drug addict, even if you're high, we want you to be able to come to our church. I don't try to pick who God reaches and how they reach them and what state they got to be in before He reaches them. You're welcome to come to church, and we've had a couple in church. We had one girl in church that had to pull her shirt up over her head, and it was it's been interesting, and there's a lot of mentally ill street people in our area, and we've had some of them through, and I've had to learn a lot this year about trying to share the gospel and the love of Christ with the mentally ill, the bipolar and the schizophrenic, and that's been a big learning curve because my nature, I have a shortcut nature. I just want to get to the point, tell you about Jesus, and you say yes, and then we're good. And I've had to learn with these people especially that isn't going to work. That you have to kind of be in it, and you have to invest in them, and you have to show time with them, and you also have to be willing to let them go. And we've had to let some go. That they'd come around, and you'd invest in them, and then, they'd spin out of control, and they'd get angry about something, or they'd get hurt about something, and then they're gone, And so with this crowd, it's been really important for me not to have a lot of expectation on how it's going to happen, but just look at it as an opportunity to plant seeds that one day will grow into a harvest. That's what we're trying to do. You never know what God's going to do with that little time and that little encounter and the experience they have with you and you have with them. So, we've tried to really, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we don't have a long-term, we still haven't adopted a long-term vision for this church. We're still letting God unfold that. And we're taking every little piece and every little encounter and every little situation, and we're being grateful, and we're doing the best we can in that moment, and we're trying to share what God has for them, through us, to them, and to not let the sadness or what doesn't look like a victory at the time discourage us in what we're doing. So, we can't have a long-term goal, because then we start measuring. Okay, we're 6 months in, we should be here. We're a year in, we should be here. We're 2 years in, it should look like this. We're not doing that. What we are doing is we're excited for everything God's letting us do. We're excited for every person that God's letting us meet and encounter. And we're also excited for all the ways we've seen God show up in our life personally and in the church, and not make that have to be something more than what it is, because it's plenty on its own. Anytime you get to see God show up, it is a magnificent thing. And it doesn't mean that God has to show up tomorrow and Thursday and on for that to mean more. It means enough on its own. We have seen, I've heard so much from God this past year, and I'll tell you, the sound of His voice when He's talking to you, and the things He says, and He said some funny things to me, and He said some serious things to me, but it's just to hear from God. That's all we need. We trust that we're going to do this until God says do something else. And that may be never, it may be next year. I don't have a vision for what this church has to look like 10 years for it to be a success. When we started this, we started it with the notion that if one person gets saved, it was worth all the effort, all the investment, everything we put into it, it was worth it. And we had one person get saved. And we've had, when that one person got saved, that first person, we were able to say, okay, the mission's paid for. However long God leaves us here, we got out of this what we needed to feel like a success. And that is that one person heard the gospel, they heard it with their heart, they accepted Jesus Christ, and when you look at it realistically, you have an idea, I guess, as a church on how many souls, how many people should get saved for the level of investment that you're making. And the question that I had to ask myself is, say we invested $100,000 in doing church for a year, and one person got saved, it means that soul cost $100,000. What a bargain. This is paper, it's money, it's nothing eternal, but yet we got something for that investment that is going to go on and live in an eternity. It also is going to make God, it says when one person gets saved, the angels rejoice. There was a party in heaven because of one person getting saved. So I can't put monetary value on that. So whatever we're called to invest, whatever we're called to sacrifice, anything invested here or sacrificed here is always going to be a bargain for something that is eternal and lasts forever. So that's how we've had to look at it. No, that's not how we had to look at it. That's how we chose to look at it, because that is the foundation of everything this church is trying to do. We're trying to sow into and invest in a kingdom where moths and rust can't affect it. It's eternal. It's going to last forever. So everything here, even our energy, our strength, our sacrifice, our money, or whatever we invest, it is all a bargain to even be able to be involved in any of God's business. Being involved in God's business is the privilege, and it's the privilege that beyond any results you see or beyond any benefits you may receive or blessings or whatever, being able to even work for God is an honor in itself. And so, that's how we're grabbing a hold of that. Now, there's another thing I wanted to say about what I heard about the church planting thing, about do you think I had to teach the angels how to praise and worship me? And that is that I know church planters, and I see other church planters, and there's churches that are going up, and I mean they ain't even open yet, and they've already got 2 services scheduled, and they got a worship band, and they got all this stuff, and we don't even have a worship band. We do videos. I kind of like the videos, but the point to me is that if you feel called to do something from the Lord, check your calling. Ask God for confirmation. He's not afraid of our questions. Our questions aren't offensive to him. Anytime we're talking to God, it's a good thing. So if you feel called, if you feel led that God wants you to do something, don't let the church, the world, or anybody distract you from that, because it's easy to fall for that. You have to have all these ducks in a row, and you have to have a certain level of education, and you got to have the right place, and all of that is nonsense. It's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous to take something holy like the calling of the Lord and then muddy it up with worldly mud. I'm not down with that at all. What I'm saying is, if you feel like God's calling you to do something, go for it. You know, I find for myself that when I'm doing what God's calling me to do, I hear from God more, and I hear from Him clearer, and I hear from Him better. So, even if your vision isn't all laid out yet, just start stepping. God will make the rest of it come to pass. And if you're going wrong, and if you heard wrong and you're doing something that, you know, you really weren't called to do, God's big enough to let you know that too. And you know what? I honestly believe in this, and this we decided before we started this, and that is that it was better to do what we thought God was calling us to do and be wrong than to not even attempt it out of fear or worry, or hey, God didn't make it clear enough to us. You know, that would have been such a disappointment if God had really called us to do this, but we let all of these obstacles keep us from doing it. To us, that was far worse than doing this and failing. And, you know, we gave our house away to do this, and we came out here, and I've laid it out before. We came out here, we had $4,000, and we spent $1,000 on the truck to get our stuff out here. So, you know, we rolled this on nothing, basically. And we were working to, you know, try to survive and make this happen. And so, you know, we were willing to invest in what we thought God called us to do. And we also wanted to do it in a way where we couldn't make it happen without God. Never have a vision or a calling that God's not required to show up for it to happen. Because if you do, you might not see God show up. You know, and for us, we're like, God, hey, if you don't show up, this ain't going to happen. We're here. We're going to do our part. We're going to do what we think we're going to do what we think you called us to do, but we're not going to do anything apart from you. And so for us, that was a really important thing. So, you know, my church plant advice is, if you feel it, go for it. And even if you're a terrible, terrible failure, what really could you have been doing better with your time that would have been better anyway? You know, if you weren't doing something for the kingdom, you were doing something for the world, and this world is on a downhill slide, and it's temporal, and nothing here lasts to the king. So, you know, anytime you spend pursuing anything for the kingdom, it's a better investment than doing anything for the world. And it's funny, you know, you see people that they invest and they invest and they invest, so the last 10 years of their life they can be comfortable, but they're not willing to invest at all in their eternity. And it's mind-boggling to me, because everybody in the world tells me these people with a lot of money are smart. And I'm like, that seems extremely dumb to me. You know, we're invested in eternity. We're not investing in the last 10 years, our golden years on planet Earth. Who could care less? You know, that's man, like Paul says, that's momentary. That's like nothing. You know, so you got all these fat cat rich people in the world that are investing and they're making more money, and man, when they retire, they're going to live well. Well, guess what? You invested all that time and money when you had opportunities to invest in the kingdom. So you're actually on a very poor investment scheme, because you didn't invest in the kingdom. And if you're saved, that's where you're going to live forever. And you're going to get there having not invested much in your eternity. And for me, that's sad, you know. So believe me, I'm not jealous of the fat cats that everybody tells us are so smart now. They got the investment strategy, whatever. I'm like, we're going for the whole enchilada. We're going for eternity. And when we get there, we want to hear, "You did good, my good and faithful servant. I'm proud of you for," you know, one good word from God is worth more than anything this world has to offer, and that's what we're invested in. We just want to show up, you know, both of us being recovering addicts, we want to show up. We've wasted so much of our life. We want to finish strong. That's our goal, is finish strong. That God was able to take all of that old and dark and wicked and painful life and turn it into something good and to finish strong. So that's all that's our investment strategy. We don't have retirement plans. We're like the first bus to heaven that comes. We're out of here and we're on it. So, you know, that we're jumping on the bus. So we have not given a lot of thought to our future. We've not given a lot of thought to the future of this church. The time and the life of this church and the course of this church is not ours to set. It's just ours to show up. Every Saturday, until we hear different from God, we go do church. And that's what it is we go and we do church. We be the church. We go and talk about who we love. That's what our church is that just go talk about what you love. And the one good thing that I love about our church with the addicts and stuff like that is that, man, when you know that you've been saved from a lot and you've been forgiven a lot and that you have been redeemed by the blood of Christ, these people, these addicts and we feel that. We are so grateful for that because we're the ones that we knew we had hell coming, you know, and we knew we deserved it, you know. And something happened, somebody happened where that did not happen to us, and we are grateful for that. I wish a lot more people really understood that, you know, just the value of what Christ died for us to have. And I think, and I'm not saying we're the only people that feel that, I'm just saying we feel that intently. You know, when you've been at death's door, when you've been OD'd on the bathroom floor, when you've been doing stuff that you know should send a person to hell, and something happens where that doesn't happen to you, man, that will change your life. It will change your heart. It will give you, I tell you, man, it makes you where you just don't fall for as much stuff from the world as a lot of other people do. You know, the world doesn't have much to offer us that can even compete with that the feeling of being redeemed, the feeling of being snatched out of the flames of hell is such a feeling that materialism and success and all that, they don't produce that kind of effect on you. And so we're a little bit more insulated from some of them lures than a lot of other people that are still out there, you know, trying to have one foot in the world and one foot in God's kingdom. And, you know, we all know that, you know, pick a side, one side or the other. And, you know, but, you know, that being double-minded and, you know, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, you're a member of the world, and 1 day a week, you're a member of the kingdom, you know, and let's get this sermon over so we can get home to the football game or whatever, you know. I mean, it's, you know, for us, that's not as big a lure, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that we have people that come in there with real-world problems exposed. Because when you come in there with your heart bleeding out your chest and God does something, we get to see that. Because a lot of the people that's coming to our church, we ain't big at hiding our drama and our struggles and our weaknesses. You know, we come in here and it's just like, blah, all over the place, you know. But because of that openness, we also get to see God work, and we get to see people change and get better. And, you know, we got people coming to the church that's been clean for, you know, several months now, and they're doing good. And, you know, and you just see that transformation. We get to see the power of God work out in people's lives, where a lot of people that hide their struggles and hide their pain, you just don't get to see that. And we're glad we get to see it. I'm not going to say that every day in this world, in our church, is easy. We have a couple that can grate on you, and that, you know, they always got this problem or they always got that problem, and you're kind of talking them through the same thing over and over again, you know. And But that's part of what we're doing and where we're doing it. And even in that, just having hope for them, just having hope that, hey, they may not have it now and they're still whatever, but there's still hope that they're going to get it. And there's still hope that we're going to get to see God do something in their life. And, like I said, we don't have to see the result to enjoy being in the moment and in the process if we know God's there and God shows himself, and he shows himself in a big way. And so for us, we keep on trucking. There's been a lot of people online and that we know from back home that have supported this church, and I've had people send money for, hey, here's for some food for the people, or here's to pay another month's rent, or here's whatever you need, and it's been amazing, because like I said, we had no church that sponsored us to do this. It wasn't like our church believed in us so much and said, we know you have a calling, go do this. Our church back home did not do that. But it's funny, because even without that sponsorship from another organization, we've seen people show up and say, we want to help what you're doing. We believe God has told us to help you. And we're going to be faithful in that. And it's been amazing, and the timing of it has been amazing. We've had bills starting to kind of get there, and because I can only work 2 days a week while we're doing all this thing, and so we work and we do what we can, but and then when something's about due or we're down pretty low, God will step in and somebody will say, hey, I just want to send you this check to help out with your bills and stuff like that, or whatever. And we got some people that regularly do that every month something comes from them that says, hey, keep doing what you're doing, and them people have been a source of encouragement to us. They've been a source of joy, because for somebody else to be able to believe in your vision is always an encouragement, or believe in what you're doing, or even just to believe in that, hey, we know God's called you to do this, and God's called us to help you do it. And they get to be a part of everything that's happening here, and it's a joy to us, and it's people that you maybe wouldn't have suspected that, people that you don't even realize that you had any impact on, or people that are just obedient. They hear God say something and they go and do it. And that's so amazing to me that there's all these little secret people out there that God has lined up. And God just says, hey, do this. And they're just like, okay, God. And they go do it. They don't ask, they don't interview, they don't put prerequisite or requirements or anything on it. They just do it. And for me to know that those faithful people that hear from God, that's the most important thing to me, that they hear from God. You can go out in the world and raise money for charity. That's not what we're trying to do. We don't want no money unless it came from somebody saying, God wanted me to do this. We want it to come from God. And it can come through them. That's great. But we want them to hear God say, I want you to help them do this. That's the connection. We needed all the dots to line up back to God in all that we're doing. That's the thing to us, is that there's these tentacles and these threads out into even faraway places, places nowhere near here, where we know God has connections there that are looking out for us and what we're doing here. And that has been priceless. It's been amazing. The timing of it has always been magnificent, and it's enabled us to just keep going, and we are grateful to every one of you for that. And we're great, and it's not even about the amount. I don't care whether it was $20 or $2,000 or whatever. It's the fact that you heard God say something, you listened, and then you did what he told you. That makes you a part of what we're doing. It makes you a part of our church. You're a part of our church that don't get to show up on Saturday night, but you're an important part of our church, which we hope is and always intend for to be a part of the kingdom of God. And we're not wanting to do anything independent of that connection to the kingdom. You know, you can do a lot of things in this world, and the world is so thirsty and so starving that you can sell them fake, false stuff all day long, and you can make a lot of money doing it, and you can garner influence and stuff like that. And we don't even want a drop of that money. We don't want a drop that doesn't come from God. So, you know, we don't do a lot to try to raise support. We don't do a lot to try to gain personal support, church support, or anything like that. We completely wait until God talks to somebody, and then it comes through that. So, you know, you're not going to get a letter from us saying, we need money, please send us money. That ain't going to happen. If you hear send us money, that's from God. And, you know, and if you don't hear it from God, don't you send a dime. You know, I mean, we do not want to get into, for us, the beauty is that, you know, a lot of people look at prayer and trusting God as obligations. We look at them as the opportunity. We get to trust God. You know, and that's, and I'm not saying that that's always easy, because God has God's own timing, and He shows up when He thinks it's right, and He always right. But sometimes it can get a little tense in the flesh. And that's a good thing. Paul talks about buffeting that flesh. Well, our flesh gets buffeted sometimes, and every time our flesh gets buffeted, it's good. You know, it makes us a little stronger, a little tougher, a little more able to endure. And it also makes you hungry and thirsty for when God's showing up. You know, man, you know how good dinner tastes when you're really hungry? Well, it's the same way with God showing up. Man, when you're really needing God to show up, and then boom, God shows up, that is magnificent. You know, that is wonderful. You know, would it be nice if God showed up before you got hungry? I don't know. You know, that's God's business. God knows our hearts, you know. But man, when we're ready and we're kind of a little bit on the desperate edge, and then God shows up, that always is so amazing and so encouraging. And I don't even know if I could give that up for world security or whatever. So we may never be secure by the world standards in what we are doing. But the world sells false security. None of it is true, and none of it is real security. Our security is in doing what God's called us to do, and we believe in that 100%. And it's real security. So, you know, I kind of just wanted to update everybody on what's happening with the church. You know, we're almost to the July 29th. It'll be our first year anniversary. And we're also, you know, in another week or so, we're going to have the first year anniversary of Tyler's death. And man, that's it's been a long journey, and we've seen God be so faithful to us in that, and we've seen Him, you know, work in our personal hearts and our beliefs and our trust in Him just on that front. But, you know, so we got a couple big anniversaries coming up. Our wedding anniversary is next week. And so, you know, it was kind of a time for reflection, and I wanted to kind of talk to you all and tell you what's going on with the church and us. You know, we're excited about the church anniversary. We're sad in our cores about the anniversary of Tyler's death. You know, that's still something we live with every day. We talk about it every day. We've done this hand in hand together. God has graced us and blessed us to be able to be a support for each other. There's been times this past year where my wife was so heartbroken and so devastated, and even days where she was so mad at God, not understanding why. And we've been able to go through all of this together. You know, they say the loss of a child tears up a lot of marriages, and you know, we have not felt that at all. As a matter of fact, you know, we're closer. We feel closer than we've ever been, but it's because we aren't trying to hide from this. We're not trying to hide from the grief. We're doing it together. We're talking about it. We're living it together. Some days are good. Some days are bad. Even, you know, but we make it through. And God, the same way God has been faithful looking after the church, God has been faithful looking after us and looking after my wife and our marriage. And, you know, and so it's been amazing. I'm not saying that it has been easy, but it don't have to always be easy to be amazing. And, you know, we know God's doing something with all of that. And we are grateful. So I just wanted to update you all. And I hope I didn't sound like a blabbering idiot. Thanks a lot.